Hi, this is Laura Wogzogen, your math instructor this semester. I want to go ahead and do a short video to introduce you to Project One. This is our first project and it is a computer program that we need to be using. And so I'll be using StatDisk, which is a free program. If you would like to use something different, please reach out to me as soon as possible before the due date. So then that way I'm aware of what you would be using instead. So for us to see our information about our project, I'm going to go to modules on Canvas, and you'll notice there'll be a couple folders here that have some information that will be useful for us for projects. First one is going to be just our StatDisk help for projects. This is going to be for all your projects to be using. And so on there is a StatDisk intro video that will talk you through how to use StatDisk, a little introduction to it. And then also a StatDisk manual. There's help videos. Those are videos that were made by Mario Triola. And if you notice, that name is also the name of the person that has created our textbook. So it's matched up with the same sections. And also he has an introduction as well as some StatDisk information for you. So the first thing is the manual, I think is very important, and also the intro video that kind of walks you through it. And so with that, we'll go ahead and look at the manual in a moment. I want to jump down here to the next folder, which says Project One on protein bars. So on here, you'll see that there's an intro video where this is posted, and you can rewatch it as many times as you need to. I also uploaded the project as a PDF and then also as a Word document. And then I also put down a partial project example and then also when you submit it. So looking at our project, there's some information here to read through, and it says on here that we will be collecting data for 10 protein bars. And from this, we have the 10 best protein bars are found in this article. And so we will all have the same data. So the information is on there. There's a link for that article, and you will need to go onto that article and copy down the information that's needed. So it does say using the data provided on the above website, write down the name of the protein bar and the grams of protein for the 10 protein bars. Those are the only two things that we need. So again, the name and the grams of protein. And again, that's coming from that article. Then on here, it also says the points for each part are labeled next to the number. This is an individual project and each student will be submitting their own project solution. The project needs to be typed. Each part needs to be correctly labeled and completed in order, and a statistical computer program needs to be used. The program I'll be using is StatDisk. The link is on there. It's at statdisk.com. If you would like to use something different, let me know as soon as possible. Then on here in bold, it says parts 3, 4, and 5 must have screenshots of the output from StatDisk or a different approved computer program. Again, if you would like to use something different, it needs to be approved prior to you turning this in. Otherwise, I will not be grading it. It will be missing those parts. So for this, a screenshot, it depends on what device you're using. It's going to be different depending on if you're a laptop, a phone, a tablet. Make sure your screenshots are legible. You should be able to see all the numbers that are on there. So distributions, which again are tables, can be created either in Excel, StatDisk, or Word, or if you use Google Sheets or Google Slides. So it says for parts 3, 4, and 5, make sure to clearly state the correct answer and round to 3 decimal places. So even though you put the picture of the output, you need to make sure that you're stating it. And so in rounding it correctly. So show work for all calculations such as outliers and z-scores. No points are rewarded for using a graphing calculator for parts 3, 4, and 5. And the objective of this is to gain knowledge with working with a computer program. So this data set is relatively small right now. It's just our first project getting us used to using the program. And as we move forward in the semester, you'll notice we'll be dealing with really large data sets of like 500 or more individuals. So part 1 on here says to create a frequency distribution that includes the name of the protein bars and the grams of protein it contains. So again, this is making a table with the name of the protein bars, and the gram of the protein that contains. That is it. Do not add any additional information. Also remember, tables should have lines on them, have columns, labeling those columns of what they represent. Number 2 says to create a grouped frequency distribution with class width of 2 grams and a starting value of 10 grams of protein. So for this, a great example to look at is either in your homework that's a review assignment for week 5, or in our chapter notes where we go through an example dealing with soccer player weights. Number 3 says to create a histogram of your grouped data in number 2. And realize that number 3 does require a screenshot of our output. So we do have a histogram that we have to make with StatDisk. Number 4 says find the descriptive statistics of your raw data in part 1. This includes the sample mean. You need to have your standard deviation of the sample, as well as the 5-number summary. And again, that one is also using StatDisk. And then number 5 does say create a box plot of the raw data in number 1. And make sure you don't include your fences. And again, this is also using StatDisk. For number 6, it says to describe the shape of the box plot. Make sure you use the correct notation that we use in class and no outside sources to be getting information from. Should be identical to the terminology that we use in our class. Number 7 says determine if there are any outliers, and if there are any outliers, clearly state what the outliers are. Must show all work. So again, in order to figure out if you have outliers, you do need your interquartile range, your lower fence, and your upper fence in order to determine if you have any outliers for this data set. Number 8 says find a different protein bar that you can either be looking at the grocery store or online. And all I need for this problem is going to be the name of the protein bar and the grams of protein that that protein bar has. Number 9 says to find the z-score. If you do not remember how to find a z-score, make sure to go back and look at your notes in chapter 3. And so it says to using the sample mean and standard deviation from part 4. Make sure you have those values rounded correctly. And number 10 says determine if your protein bar is significantly low, significantly high, or not significant. And so remember, z-scores that are greater than 2 would be considered significantly high. Z-scores less than -2 would be not significant. And then those values in the middle are considered not significant. So again, greater than 2 is significantly high. Less than 2 for our z-score would be significantly low. Not significant are those values in between. Definitely go back and look at it. It's been talked about in multiple chapters. There's usually like a triangle looking diagram that's given with that, and that's just one way to determine that. So this is our project, the first one, and so I want to go ahead and look at the StatDisk manual. And so with our StatDisk manual, the most important page I think is going to be page 5. So I'm going to go ahead and go to page 5. And page 5 just kind of has an outline of what StatDisk looks like. And we'll look at StatDisk in just a moment. But you can see that there's drop downs for each of these. And this one page shows everything. So if you notice, if you look underneath data, you see the word histogram and box plot. And so histogram and box plot here. And that was part of the problems that we had for project 1. The other one that we have is going to be determining the mean, the standard deviation, the 5-number summary, which is going to be under descriptive statistics, which again is under data. And so I think that this is an important place to look to kind of see where everything is. It's nice rather than when you're looking on StatDisk itself. The next page I also like because it does allow you to move directly to that chapter. And so for example, with that descriptive statistics, if I were to click on chapter 3, that would take me there. And the first part we have is centers, measures of centers. So mean and median, which are things that we need. And if you look on 3.1, it goes through for procedure for exploring data and obtaining descriptive statistics. So you can manually enter in your data, which is what we are going to do. You have to enter in those 10 grams of protein. You can retrieve data from either something you created or if you have a data set that you're using. We'll be doing all three of those in this class. But it talks you through, it says click on data, click on explore data, descriptive statistics, select the column that you want to be having those calculations done for, and then the evaluate button. So it does talk you through everything. And if you also notice, you can see like 3.3 has box plots. And if you go back to chapter 2, you'll notice that that's going to have histograms in it. So in addition, there's also those help videos. There's also extra videos posted on YouTube that other people have made. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up StatDisk quickly for us to look at. Again, don't forget there is a StatDisk intro video that is on the StatDisk module itself. So opening up StatDisk, this is what it looks like. You would just go ahead and type in those grams of protein that you need. And then selecting data is a drop down. I don't have any data in here, but like we were looking at before, if you were to select this, you would then select which column your data is in. And like it said, you would select evaluate. StatDisk is nice because it's written in more plain English and not using any kind of computer programming that other programs would need. So again, this is StatDisk, what we'll be using for all 4 of our projects. And make sure to get an early start on your project and ask if there's any questions. And the Marks is also a great place to go to get some extra help.